Hello and welcome, Final Fantasy Randomizer fans. My name is Hebbings, and tonight I am joined by the lovely Giga Otomia. Hey, Giga, how you doing?
I'm doing quite all right. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, especially since we are here showcasing the first of a monthly series that we'll be doing here on the FFR channel, which is going to be Archipelago or Multi-World, for those who are familiar with that term, races or showcases with Final Fantasy Randomizer Mystic Quest and Final Fantasy Randomizer.
And our players that we'll have on stream today, we have more players in the race, or rather more teams of two, but the ones we'll have on stream with us right now are Snollidice and X10 Power, both playing Final Fantasy Mystic Quest for opposite teams, and Dark Moon and Caleb, both playing Final Fantasy 1. Dark Moon and Snolli will be on a team together, so they're on the left. Caleb and X10 also on a team together, they're on the right, as you can plainly see.
Yes, our other team off camera will be Farfalu and RTA. Farfalu being the Mystic Quest runner in that team up, RTA being the FFR runner. So want to go ahead and take a moment while we're getting set up here with the streams and go ahead and go over some. I don't
We
think
should
we
have
have
a fourth team.
I don't remember.
Let me check.
While he's checking that, let's go over some of the settings that we're having for both of the seeds. So on the Mystic Quest side of things, we're showcasing a shard hunt tonight. So the Mystic Quest runners will all have to find 32 Skycoin shards, and from there, that is their go mode. They don't need any other items. We have the Doom Castle shortcut turned on. So once they get their their shards, they are good to go mode. It's just a matter of if they feel comfortable going to go fight the Dark King and his entourage.
I figured it out. It looks like it's Flip Heal on the Mystic Quest side and Akir on the Final Fantasy 1 side.
Very nice.
Speaking of, I could go into go mode for Final Fantasy 1 if you want.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Go mode for Final Fantasy 1 is the 32 shards out of, I believe, 40 that are available. They also need the instrument, which is most likely going to be a loot if they didn't change that in their preferences, and the key, the magic key that opens every lock.
Indeed. Now, giving us some help tonight is going to be the lovely Socket, helping us out with tracking. Shout outs to Socket if you see him there in the chat. Say thank you very much for helping us out. We are only 2 pairs of eyes, so an extra set helps with tracking 4 different streams at the same time.
And Socket enough for doing this alone.
Yeah, for sure. And the big gimmick of tonight is, like we said, AP World. So you'll see the little text boxes in between each of the teams' streams there. And essentially what AP or multi-world means, for those who aren't familiar, is not only are the items shuffled and randomized in the player's own games, but the items have been shuffled between their games. So Mystic Quest items can be in the Final Fantasy Randomizer, and Final Fantasy Randomizer items can be in Mystic Quest. And it looks like our runners are taking off. Cat Claws start off for our Mystic Quest runners.
And it looks like the old man has already sent a floater over.
Oh, that's a good start for FFR for sure. I also see Nuke in that shop. Now, I will say, Giga, you are the more experienced with FFR between the two of us.
I am.
I am strictly a Mystic Quest person, although maybe one day I'll dip my toes. And it looks like our Mystic Quest runners have already found a couple AP items. So if you notice on the Mystic Quest screens there, you'll see a big rainbow icon on their screen pop up when they open a chest as AP item found. And that will send an item over to our FFR runners. If you look at the text box between the 2 streams, you'll be able to see what item was sent to who.
The floater, in particular, allows the FFR player to get their airship out of the Ryukon Desert. They may also need the canoe to get over there, and definitely a ship. And once they have the airship, they can land on any grass tile in the entire world.
Indeed. And looks like Snollin's about to pick up our first partner on the Mystic Quest side of things, Tristram. Now, when we open up the menu, I don't want you guys to be too surprised by this, but one of the settings that we've enabled for the Mystic Quest side of the house is Spellbook Extended. So what this new feature does is it adds spells that partners probably should have had in the vanilla game but didn't to their arsenal. So Tristram has been granted the Quake spell, boo, but also the Exit spell, making Tristram actually viable for a good portion of this game now.
That is correct. Exit is so unbelievably useful. You can use it to immediately delete an enemy you don't want to fight, although you won't get experience for it. You can use it to escape from a dungeon. Say you're at the end of a dungeon, you don't want to walk all the way back out. Exit.
Ooh, and the Apollo helmet added that battleground on the left-hand side. Quick note on color coordination on the Mystic Quest side of things. The battlegrounds have been color coordinated and symbol coordinated for those who might be color deficient to indicate what the rewards are for the shuffled battlegrounds. So if it's blue and it has a chest, that means it's a blue key item battleground. If it's gray and it has the swords, that means it's an XP battleground. And if it's green and it has a money bag on it, that means it drops GP. Ooh, and the river coin for Snolid.
Some technical difficulties over on Team Scrambled Eggs' side.
Yeah, I am seeing that on my end as well. While they go ahead and get that up and running, Giga, let's go ahead and see what's happening on Darkmoon's side here. Looks like he's hitting his second spell shop here.
He is. He's got life, heal 3. I didn't see the other two for the white magic. Zap is one of the instant kill spells. That's going to be quite good for him if he takes it. It didn't look like he did, though. It might not have a damage formula that he quite enjoys. For the moment, he's going to be fighting the pirates. That's going to be another probably incentivized check for Final Fantasy Randomizer. Incentivized checks in that game are like red chests in Mystic Quest. He does not immediately talk to Vicky afterward. What's going on here?
They're just flexing the power of that early game nuke there, just wiping out those pirates in one turn, though. I just realized that Darkmoon's sprites are Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle sprites. I was like, what is this black mage? And it's a mouser. That's great.
There are a bunch of different sprite sets for FFR. It's pretty great. I made my own. I'm the only one who uses it, but still.
Yeah, for sure. Meanwhile, Snolid about to show off the shortcut over here. So we've turned on the Doom Castle shortcut. So not only can you get to it from Focus Tower on the overworld now, you can go ahead and go straight into the door area now without Dragon Claw or Mega Grenades. Snolid going to go up here and check these brown boxes over here. Getting a bunch of AP items for his partner. Those could be helpful. Looks like some gold, cabin, pro cape.
And they did find the ship in Temple of Fiends. They call it Topher. Or no, not Topher, Toph. Sorry. The R comes later. It's for revisiting. The ship, it lets you cross water. But you have to go find it at a dock.
For sure. And it looks like Snolid is about to head on over to Fireberg as soon as he gets done being bombarded with AP items. So you'll notice that randomly our runners on the Mystic Quest side of the house will just stop and get a text pop up every time that our FFR counterparts find a Mystic Quest item. It'll just materialize and they will be stopped by a text pop up. If the FFR runners finish before the Mystic Quest runners, it could be a pretty like 2 to 3 minutes solid of pop-ups for them. So hopefully they finish around the same time. Snolid showing off another cool feature of the randomizer there. So it used to be that when you upgraded your partners, you had to basically do their checks, then swap them out of your party, then go find them again and pick up their level 2 version. Now you could just go ahead and take them to their level 2 spot and they'll automatically level up to their second form, granting them their extra power. Tristram not being great though, so Snolid is opting to take our boy Ruben out for a little ride, finding a decent amount of shards here. I'm waiting for him to open up his inventory to see how many he's got now.
Darkmoon is finding his version of Exit in the Elfland White Magic shop. I believe that was level 4, yeah. Level 4 charges, they come kind of late in the leveling pool.
Yep, for those who are not familiar, Final Fantasy 1 uses the D&D equivalent of magic system. So essentially,
I've heard it called Vancian before. Basically, what happens is every tier of magic has its own set of spell charges. Mystic Quest basically works the same way, in that you get a set of white charges, a set of black charges, a set of wizard charges. In Final Fantasy 1, it's just level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4, all the way up to level 8. And each level in Mystic Quest can have, or not Mystic Quest, each level in Final Fantasy 1 can have up to 9 charges at max level. In Mystic Quest, they go much higher. If you level up that high. I believe Ben can have at most 41 white charges at level 41. No,
Indeed.
That doesn't sound right. 44.
Good question from the chat here. What leveling system are we using for Mystic Quest? So for this seed tonight, we are doing traditional leveling. So that means that our runners will have to take their partners to their traditional first item check locations, and then they will have to take their partners to their second pickup spots. So for instance, Phoebe here, a Snarled will have to run Phoebe to Wintry Cave, to where you would in vanilla get the cat claw, and she will give you an item. Then you have to take Phoebe to the Windia Inn, and once you do so, she will then level up to her second form, which has white and basically all of the damage.
And are these forms the same levels as in vanilla? I see
Yes.
Phoebe's level 15. So she will
Correct.
be level 31, 34? 34. After she gets to tier 2.
Indeed. And the general idea with this monthly series is going to be showcasing different kind of features for each of the randomizers. So tonight we're showcasing Shard Hunt. And we didn't want to take away too much from that, but you know, next month we could showcase Mystic Quest Overworld Shuffle or Dungeon Shuffle with a different criteria, maybe with the upgraded quest system, and FFR can show off a different set of settings as well. You just never know.
I have the settings for FFR in front of me right now. I can go over them if you want.
Yeah, go ahead. Looks like Snarled's taking on a battleground, and Dark Moon is diving.
He is diving Marsh. Marsh is a pretty early game type of area. So the Final Fantasy 1 settings, we've got medium-sized Topher. We've got Topher is not unlocked, so you do need the key, like I said earlier. You can exit from it. We've got the difficulty scaling set to 70 to 200% for enemy stats, and 70 to 180% for boss stats, with HP set to 100 to 250%. We have no incentivized locations at all. So apologies for previously when I was talking about incentivized locations. I had no idea. I had not looked at the Final Fantasy randomizer settings at all. Early open progression, Northern Docks, and the Bahamut Cardia Dock. So with the ship and the tail, they don't have the tail yet, I believe. But if they get the tail, they do both have ships. If they get the tail, they can do the class advancement, which is like getting a tier 2 partner for your entire party.
Indeed. And Snarled taking a beating from this battleground from these green caps over here. I want to go ahead and just highlight that real quick. Normally those enemies don't have that spell, but for tonight from the Mystic Quest side of the house, we have a couple spicy settings of our own. It looks like we have Safe Shuffle turned on, which what that does is it basically randomizes the enemy attacks within a safe parameter. You're not going to see anything crazy like Death Heal or Psy Shield or anything like that outside of maybe Wyvern. But enemies could have some, early game enemies can have some late game attacks that'll just bully them with damage if they're not safe. Looks like EXP gain for our Mystic Quest runners is set to 2.5 times. And enemy stat scaling is set to 50% all the way up to 100% for normal mobs and 125% for bosses.
I am also seeing a loot that was sent to Dark Moon. The loot opens one block, one slab actually, is the graphics used for it, that just blocks off a staircase, basically, in the end of the game. It blocks off access to the actual dungeon part of the final dungeon.
Very nice. And did see a question pop in the Discord. A reminder for folks who might not be familiar with Mystic Quest. You might notice that our runners might get what look like downgraded pieces of equipment. So right now, Snowlet Ice has mega grenades. If baby bombs are found for him later, he's not going to be stuck with baby bombs forever. All he has to do is swap off, swap back on, and it'll automatically equip the highest tier of equipment for him. Armor, you don't even have to swap off and on. It just automatically sets the stats for your highest piece of equipment.
You can't change your armor pieces around in Mystic Quest. It's not possible. So
correct.
We just don't even mind.
Indeed. Ooh, speaking of pieces of equipment, that Aegis shield is going to be very nice.
It's going to be amazing for him.
Indeed.
Why don't you tell the people how the Aegis shield works? Sorry.
Yeah. No, you're good. Aegis shield is the highest tier of equipment for the shield pieces of equipment. All of our armor basically comes in 3 tiers, along with all the other pieces of equipment in Mystic Quest. So you have your body armor, your shield, your accessory, and your headpiece. The Aegis shield in particular prevents status ailments of paralysis and petrification. So now Snowlet will no longer be able to be turned into stone, and will no longer be able to lose basically all of his turns to paralysis anymore. This does not affect your partners. It only affects your Ben character. You might notice that Snowlet has his own sprite set for him. That's an option that you can choose in the randomizer. So just like FFR can customize their sprites, Mystic Quest, you can also change Ben's sprite. Right now, partners can't be altered. That might be a feature in the future. We don't know yet. That all depends on the devs.
As for I keep saying Mystic Quest when I mean Final Fantasy 1. As for Final Fantasy 1, armor pieces and even weapons as well, you saw Saber -1 there. Weapons and armors can be plus or minus up to 9 points. Now, I don't know the specifics on it, but I believe it just affects the accuracy, the damage, and the defense. We also, it's part of a flag, I'm sure, but you can also have the, if you see a spell name on top of a weapon, that weapon can cast that spell. But there are certain weapons in the vanilla game that just cast spells anyways and aren't named after the spell, like the Thor Hammer, which can cast, I believe, Lightning 2. Could be Lightning 3, I'm not sure.
Indeed. Now, for folks who are paying attention to our Mystic Quest runners here, you might notice that X10 Power, it looks like they're having some technical difficulties. While this does put him a little bit behind, this could actually be a boon. So the way multi-world works is every item that Caleb finds will be logged on the AP server. Once X10 gets fixed, essentially every item that Caleb has found will immediately pop up onto his game once he connects to the AP server, AP standing for Archipelago, and he'll be bombarded with, with fines, with checks. So X10 could realistically, depending on Caleb's routing here, be set into an essential go mode state if everything is found, meaning that he'll have all the spells and equipment that he would want anyways on Caleb's side of the game, leaving him minimal checks to get into go mode and some leveling to make sure he's safe for Dark King. So this is still anybody's race, chat. I know it looks like X10 is just standing there. Like I said, I think experiencing some technical difficulties, but once they get up and running, still anybody's race.
I'm going to be honest. That sounds hard to believe.
We'll see. I've seen crazier things happen.
Continuing with the Final Fantasy randomizer flags, we've got Bahamut's Horde. So remember when I was talking about Bahamut having a dock of his own?
Mm-hmm.
There are, I think, 9-ish chests scattered around Cardia Isles, but there's only the one dock. Bahamut having a horde being enabled means that all the chests that would be scattered around Cardia Isles are now just behind Bahamut. So it's the same memory addresses, the same IDs, the same everything. It just means that they're all together in the same room.
Very nice.
The bridge and canal tree, as was noted on the record. We have guaranteed endgame Masamune, which the chest that originally would have had the Masamune definitely has it. However,
here
it's
comes
also...
that bombardment of items I was talking about. Good lord, look at extend screen.
Yeah, I see it. White, mask, flare, armor.
As soon as he gets some wizard charges, he's off to the races.
It is unfortunate that he's still level 1.
Indeed. So that. Go ahead.
He won't be able to use flare until he's at least level 5, I think.
Yeah. I mean, do you want to go over how the spell charges work in Mystic Quest real quick?
Sure. In Mystic Quest, you get 1 white spell charges Ben every level, 1 black spell charge every 2 levels, and 1 wizard spell charge every 4 levels. You start with 3 white charges, 1 black charge, and 0 wizard charges. That's it. You spend 1 charge to cast 1 spell of that tier.
Indeed. And so essentially all of our most powerful damage dealing spells in Mystic Quest are locked behind the wizard tier. There's only one tier that is, there's only one spell in the black tier of magic that is really worth using, that being Arrow. The others are very, very situational for early game. The problem with black magic and the rest of the magic in this game outside of white magic is it works off of progression scaling. So where you would find those spells at any point in the vanilla game, their power is scaled to that section of the game, which is why we always say Quake is a trash spell, because unfortunately it's scaled to early game, and it doesn't really power up.
You find it in the Bone Dungeon. It does like 225 damage before being reduced by enemy stats.
Correct, and mega grenades do 3 times the amount of damage.
Yeah.
Not to mention the animation is long as all sin. So it's until we figure out how to properly scale the black magic spells, they really are trash. And your go-to damage for Ben at the end game is going to be Arrow for situations where you're just fighting through trash mobs, White, Flare, and in some situations where enemies are resistant to fire magic, you are then going to swap out your Flare for Meteor, unless you want to go fast and save 1.5 frames or 1.5 seconds of cast time, then you just stick with White.
You were talking about enemies having some attacks that do loads of damage, but I was seeing one of the enemies in that battlefield there using Stone Block, one of Stone Golem's attacks from the Doom Castle. What's going on there? It did like 1 damage.
So, and correct me if I'm wrong, you're familiar with the formula a little bit more than I am, but the way that those bosses' attacks work is some attacks in the game scale off HP values. So if I remember correctly, Stone Golem's Stone Throw is one of those attacks. So if it's put on an enemy with like 40 HP, it's downscaled by percentage of total HP, and it's going to do like a percentage of that total HP, which in this case turned into 1.
Can I be specific?
Yes, please.
Okay, so how it works is almost every attack. The attacks that aren't affected by this are the flat damage attacks that the Dark King has, and debuff attacks. Otherwise, every attack uses the monster's maximum HP divided by 8, and if it's a boss, it's divided by a further 10, plus a set power value, plus the attack stat of the enemy, and then multiplied by some amount relating to the version of the damage formula it's using.
Indeed.
Some of them might be just the attack stat multiplied by 2 plus the other 2. Some of them might be everything added together multiplied by 1.5. Some of them might be everything added together multiplied by 0.75.
Got it. Sorry, I'm watching how fast X10 is catching up to Snollet here in terms of like check percentage values. Like basically X10 beelined it for Fireberg and cleared out all those checks in the overworld and quick easy locations that Snollet just did at the same time. Now obviously there's a 6th level gap, but if X10 plays his cards right, he could easily catch up. Like I said, he got a super loaded start with Caleb, everything that Caleb found in his seed.
I think Caleb and Darkmoon are relatively even. Darkmoon is back in Marsh. I'm not sure if he died or not.
Yeah, it's kind of hard for us to keep track of 4 screens.
I think he's just grinding in there.
Yeah, so chat, please keep us honest. If you see something on your end and we miss it, or we're confused and we're coming back to someone's screen and like, what's happening? Keep us honest.
He is definitely grinding in there. He's repeatedly stepping onto a tile that automatically gives him an encounter with these 2. Well, it could be a random number, but that time it was 2 zombie dragons.
So that can mean one of 2 things. That can mean that Darkmoon is prepping for a more difficult section of the game that he has access to but doesn't have the levels to fight, or this could mean that Darkmoon is BK'd. We'll use the term BK while we're commenting on this. It's a common phrase used in the multi-world scene. All BK means is that your progression is locked behind your partner or the other players of the multi-world seed.
There's a story behind it.
Would you like to regale the chat?
I would, but
I love this story.
Go ahead and finish the description of BK first.
Yep. So essentially what this means is you are progression locked. So let's say that X10 gets through every check available to him, and the only other place left for him to go is Windia, but he doesn't have the Sun Coin in his game. It's in Caleb's game. He is BK'd by Caleb, and Caleb needs to find the Sun Coin in his game to unlock progression for him. This can be resolved by using the hint system in Archipelago. We have this enabled for these races. The way that you unlock hints is basically you accumulate hint points up to a set value for every check you make. And then your hints cost points. So you can't just hint every single item in the game. You have to make a set amount of checks before you can unlock your next hint.
So that's not exactly true the way you've explained it. The way you said it implied that you can only get up to a set number of points and then you have to spend them. That's not true.
No,
you can have as many points as you want. It's just that hints cost a certain amount of points.
Yeah.
And you have to have that many before you can hint.
Correct. Darkmoon take a nasty wipe.
I don't think he did. I think he left, unless I missed it.
Oh yeah, seen from the chat. He took a nasty hit. Unfortunate. I feel like Final Fantasy Randomizer is way more relentless in terms of it's just like you are wiped out and completely have to start off from a certain point than Mystic Quest. Mystic Quest is super forgiving in the fact that you could just hit continue and then start the fight again.
Right. In Final Fantasy 1, you kind of can't. You have to save. Unless you specifically have the save on death flag enabled, it doesn't care. Tough luck, you should have eaten another tent. So the BK story. As the legend goes, in one of the earliest versions of a multi-world, someone got into that very progression lock situation. And they decided, you know what, this is going to take a while. I'm going to go walk to Burger King. And so they did. They left, they went to Burger King, they ordered food, they, I believe, brought it back with them to their house before eating it. They didn't eat at Burger King. But when they got back, regardless of whether they ate it at Burger King or not, when they got back, they were not out of that progression lock. And so we call it BK mode, and we have ever since.
It's such a silly story. I remember hearing it at Limit Break, and I was like, that can't be the real origin, and it probably is.
It is. I can say a similar thing about one time when I did a Super Mario World race. I was called outside to shovel some snow. I still won the race.
Oh man, that's insane. Speaking of insane, that's a huge find for Snolid on Dark Moon's side. Looks like he sent over a care package of Gaia armor. That's going to give Snolid immunity from sleep, as well as poison, and resistance against water, wind, and by relation, thunder damage. Yes, it's called thunder, not lightning in Mystic Quest. You'll hear me say thunder. It's actually lightning. I hate the naming scheme, but it is named what it is.
That's not a real element.
Yeah. We know. I know. It's just thunder. It's the way the game codes thunder. Yeah, the way the game codes. It's a
combination of wind and water.
Exactly. Yeah. You'll see a little lightning icon though.
That Dark Moon went into the back of Corneria Castle and into the rooms that had chests back there. That requires the key. He got the key at some point.
Yeah, I couldn't tell if he found the key himself or if Snolid sent it over to him.
These doors on the right side of Temple of Fiends also require the key. This Agama is also a grind spot, I believe. So Dark Moon might use this to his benefit to get those levels back.
Yeah, according to what chat was telling us, it looks like Dark Moon lost a lot of that grind due to that wipe, unfortunately. So getting in here and finding a spot to grind again and make up that level loss might be beneficial, but we'll see. Ooh, speaking of getting beat down, it looks like Caleb took a wipe there.
He certainly did. Most of his characters were petrified, I believe.
Getting confirmation from Wildham, who's also assisting with tracking on top of restreaming. Looks like the key for FFR is located in Lava Dome. Snolid did indeed find that for his partner. Once X10 makes it through his own Lava Dome, Caleb should have access to the key. But it looks like going to go ahead and rush down the easiest dungeon in the game first. Bone Dungeon.
We do have an herb being sent over on X10's side with Team Scramble Eggs. The herb in Final Fantasy 1 just unlocks one check. Most key items in Final Fantasy 1 will just unlock one check. Excuse me. That one wakes up. Go ahead.
Got a great question from chat for you here, Giga. You might be able to answer. So, the question is: if thunder and is wind and water combined, does that mean if a monster is weak to wind and water simultaneously, will they take 4 times damage instead of 2?
No. If you're weak to multiple things and you get hit by every element at the same time, it only goes up to two times damage.
Yeah, the coding for Mystic Quest is kind of lazy in that regard. It's like if weak, do extra damage. It doesn't check how many weaknesses are hit. It just goes, oh, weakness was hit? Cool, 2 times damage, which makes melting the ice golem especially rewarding. Ooh, free seeds on X10 side.
Man, I wish I had that luck. So here we are waking up the Elf Prince with the herb. And it looks like it is the TNT.
Ooh, very nice. More progression.
Yes. That is another item from the dwarf area. I forget if they have a specific name for it. I know they use the word Durger somewhere.
I guess we should explain why we got excited for what appeared to be carrots popping up on X10's side of the screen. Essentially, chat, the way that Mystic Quest handles its spells and the way you restore them is you can only restore spell charges 2 ways. You can sleep at an inn, or step into the dab bed, as we call it in the first city of the game. You literally step into a bed, the screen fades to black, you pop out, you have full HP and full spell charges, and your character essentially does what we call affectionately a dab motion. Or you can use a consumable item called seeds. Using one seed restores every single spell charge for all tiers of magic. So one seed restores all your white spell charges, all your black magic charges, and all your wizard charges. So eat your vegetables, kids. That's all I'm saying. They're good for you, literally.
Not only will Caleb be able... Wait, no, Caleb doesn't have the key, my bad. But if he did, the section down here where after he talked with the dwarf who sets off the TNT, whose name I forget at the moment, the room back there is also locked, and it has a whole bunch of chests in it. I was wrong earlier about the amount of chests in Bahamut's lair. It's actually 13. I don't know how many chests are in the Dwarven Stronghold. I'm using the wrong name for it too. Don't trust me about anything basically regarding Final Fantasy 1 and the specifics. I know the general stuff.
Yeah, much better than I am. I'm strictly a Mystic Quest guy. But I, still happy to have you here on the mic with me, regardless, filling in some of these blanks. I am seeing on the right hand side, Team X10 and Caleb are making their own progression, kind of leading back into what I was mentioning earlier with X10 being stuck. Him being stuck like that, having some technical difficulties getting connected to the AP client, yes, has put him at a level deficit. But it's also opened up some interesting routing. Team Snolid and Darkmoon still have not found their TNT. Yep, scrambled eggs. Still have not found their herb and their essentially their herb into TNT check. So depending on Snolid's routing here, this could be a huge boon for Team Pizza Box.
Do we know if Team Pizza Box has been to the Falls Basin yet?
I don't remember seeing Snolid take on Mr. Krabs. If he has, chat, just let me know.
We do also have some people saying about lazy programming in Final Fantasy 1. You don't need to tell Final Fantasy 1 players about lazy programming, because apparently half their spells didn't work before the randomizer fixed them.
Half their spells and half their characters, half the game essentially didn't work, from what I remember being told to me. Small indie company. That's correct.
They were
just
at the time.
Tiny indie company just getting started off in the world. You might have heard of them.
They nearly went bankrupt.
Oh, true.
That's why they named it Final Fantasy. It was to be their Final Fantasy.
Or so the story goes. Yeah, luck is simply a useless stat. As chat points out here. Snolid, meanwhile, taking on an interesting challenge here. Not a move I would make personally, but a move that's being made nonetheless, whether that's because of being forced due to progression lock or unavailable with the options. Snolid is taking on Hydra with Ruben 1.
And cure potions.
Yeah, so an option available that could give X10 the boost here is, with Mega Grenades now found, X10, instead of diving Dome, can run into mines first, upgrade Ruben to Ruben 2. Ruben 2 has access to the white spell. So instead of smacking the dual-headed Hydra with the mace for only about 600 damage, Ruben 2 is going to pump out about 1200 damage a spell cast, 1200 plus, leaving Ben effectively being your healer for the entirety of the fight.
He's much physically beefier too, isn't he?
Correct. Now that being, he's got like 320 more HP ish, if I remember correctly. Now that being said, Snala does have the advantage when it comes to the equipment side of the house. Having petrification, paralysis, and sleep immunity is going to go a long way in helping with that fight if he gets shuffled those nasty status ailments. Looks like Elixir was found.
We did have
On
a hint
X.
for the Dragon Claw as well on Team Scramble Eggs' side.
Ooh,
But
where is it?
I couldn't tell due to us not having our AP client. What's the word?
Zoomed in.
Not zoomed in. Like the text is transparent.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Color keyed properly, that's right. This is still a new thing, so we're still getting things properly.
Yeah, we'll work out the kinks as we do this month-to-month chat. Looks like one of our trackers, Wild Ham, has let us know that Dragonclaw is in Volcano, which both of our runners were just in, both of them picking up the Mobius crest, which could be key for them getting more checks later on. The crests you'll find in the basement of some of our vendors' houses and some other locations in the world that have the infinity symbol for Mobius, the hourglass symbol for Gemini, and what looks like a person's head for the Libra crest will warp you to different locations in the game when you step on those tiles, as long as you have the related crest. So it could be key here, although X10 fading the rest of the Volcano there could be detrimental, not being able to get the Dragon Claw. We'll see. You don't technically need it for this seed setting.
If you know the Greek alphabet, the Libra crest uses an uppercase omega.
That's right, chat. Ruben fall off cliff, learn white after getting bodied by a mummy. 1v1.
A single mummy.
A singular mummy. We avenge our friend only to find out he lost to a single mummy. Got bodied off a cliff.
We were worse than him at the time. He shouldn't have lost.
Meanwhile, looks like Darkmoon found something interesting in the underwater dungeon.
What did Darkmoon find? A flame shield?
I don't know. He essentially found something and immediately dipped. I couldn't see what it was. So chat's going to have to keep me honest there. Meanwhile, Caleb over here grinding out that spot that Darkmoon was grinding out earlier in the Marsh dungeon, trying to crank out some levels while X10 makes some progress for him.
I had another question from Mr. Miller in chat about the boss flag. And it is the boss that has the boss flag, not the attack.
Oh, yes. That being said, boss attacks don't really have any unique properties outside of Pazuzu's Reflect.
That is correct. The Psych Shield that Pazuzu uses grants him the Reflect flag, which, if you hit Pazuzu with an attacking spell while that flag is active, well, it toggles the Reflect flag, I should say. If you hit Pazuzu with an attack spell while that Reflect flag is active, then he uses the second version of Psych Shield, which deals that spell's damage to your party. Or whoever casted the spell, if it's a single target.
Indeed. Also, looks like X10 found Caleb's key now, so Caleb's about to beeline for it. Meanwhile, Darkmoon, finding a huge cluster of items for Snaldeyes, found his Gemini Crest and his multi-key. Both of those are going to lead to, well, Gemini Crest leads to a lot of crest checks. Not all of them are going to be rewards, but one of those is a guaranteed check locked behind that multi-key. So much like the Herb and FFR, multi-key really unlocks one check for you with an NPC, but it could be important. We'll see.
And FFR, the key, really unlocks a whole lot.
Mm-hmm.
All
Unlock
around the
Mystic
world,
Quest
too.
Key.
Yes. Sorry.
No, you're good. Neither of our Mystic Quest runners have access to what is arguably the best spell in the game yet. Oh, never mind. I spoke too soon. There it is. I speak and it appears that we found Exit.
Exit.
So the way exit works in Mystic Quest is you can use exit as an attack spell, like Giga was saying earlier. You can also use it outside of combat to warp out of any dungeon back to the overworld. You can also, only in the randomizer, use exit on the overworld to warp back to the beginning of the game. So the section that you spawned in on when you first started your seed, we call that area of the game Foresta. And when you use exit on the overworld, you'll warp back to that tile on Foresta. So if you need to go from one section of the world back to the beginning of the game to make a check, it is infinitely faster exiting on the overworld than it is to walk back tile by tile.
Personally, I like to be different than everyone else. I call it the Earth Continent.
Yeah, that's a fair name. The earth, the water, the fire, the wind continents.
Right.
The moniker most of us use in a Mystic Quest for the regions just comes from their main capital cities, or really their only cities in each of the region. Snarl about to take on Jin here. All of our bosses have their attacks randomized, so they could be baby mode, or they can hit like trucks, or they can have some nasty attacks mixed in there. I think even with safe seed settings or safe attack shuffle, duplicate is on the table. So what that means is our bosses can take their current HP values, make a copy of themselves, and mess up the turn economy by essentially having two very high HP versions of the boss that you have to fight. And they can duplicate an infinite number of times, up to 3 at a time. And if you kill one of the copies, one of the other copies could just use duplicate again. So it really is just fighting like a multi-headed Hydra in that facet. Hopefully we don't see that tonight.
The best strategy would be to get every living copy down as far as you can get them, and then kill them all off at the same time.
It looks like Snarl found Pure for Darkmoon, and Darkmoon found a couple Sky Fragments and a Captain's Cap. With these seed settings, oh, never mind, Snarl found them for himself. With these seed settings, Captain Cap's kind of useless, and it just gives you access to max ship. Now, that can be a location that has some key items for our runners tonight. That being said, though, with the Doom Castle shortcut turned on, there's no real like end game go mode need to have the Captain's Cap. And realistically, you don't even need the cap to get access to the ship. You just need the proper crest and to free max ship with mega grenades from Spencer's Cave.
Mm-hmm. The Pure is a pure potion. I think it's a antidote, basically.
I see. And it looks like Snarl found some flame armor in the vendor's shop in Fireburg for Darkmoon. We'll see what tier that flame armor.
I believe flame armor protects you from ice damage. Though I could be wrong and it protects you from fire damage. I don't actually know. But like ice damage would make the most sense to me. We see Darkmoon has a Rub Helmet. Rub is another one of the instant kill spells, whose damage formulas I have no idea about. I should really learn more about Final Fantasy 1.
Although it looks like your initial description of the flame armor was correct, as confirmed by one of our trackers here, Socket. That armor does indeed protect against ice.
Gotcha.
Ooh.
We have a hint for Tail showing up in what looks like Ice Pyramid 4th floor.
Ooh. Both of our Mystic Quest runners do have access to a sword. They do not need an axe for progression in Ice Pyramid, so they essentially have everything they need to go full clear of that dungeon if needed. Am I going crazy, or is X10 about to take on Wyvern with Phoebe 1?
No, you're not going crazy.
Okay, make sure I'm seeing what you're seeing on your end. We'll see if X10 actually decides to complete this dive and take on Hydra. We did see earlier on Snarl's side of the house that Hydra is holding a red chest, so that could be a key item for Caleb or himself. However, I would not advise taking on that boss with a tier 1 partner. Hydra, while being a mid-game boss, still hits incredibly hard, and with the randomizer for the attacks, anything can happen. He has a really large HP pool.
Dark Moon finding its chime, that'll give him access to Mirage Tower just to enter the bottom of it. He needs the cube to get to the second half, which is in the sky.
Yeah, in terms of progression, I would say our Final Fantasy runners are a bit ahead of our Mystic Quest runners. Would you agree with that, Giga?
I think that makes sense. I'm not entirely sure. I don't know exactly how many Skycoin shards A are necessary or B our runners have, but it does look like our Final Fantasy 1 runners are probably roughly halfway done with their shards.
Yeah, our Mystic Quest runners tonight need 32 out of 40 shards, so just like their FFR counterparts. However, neither of the Mystic Quest runners have opened up their items menu to be able to peek and see how many shards they have. So it could be anyone's guess.
How
is Dragonclaw underneath Medusa?
Well, considering they can get to the ice continent and go inside the ice pyramid whenever they want, I don't see why it would be.
Well, I mean, we mentioned earlier that someone did a hint check for Dragonclaw, and it returned as being in Volcano.
No, it was an ice pyramid, 4th floor.
No, that was
Oh, sorry, that was a tail. My bad.
Yeah, that was tail.
Dragonclaw could be under the Medusa then.
Yeah, that's mean. So, for anybody who doesn't know, a couple of our bosses have been rearranged in terms of being mini bosses. So Medusa and Doulahan and Crab specifically have been shifted and oriented in a way that their key item check chests at their locations, either the bosses themselves have been moved on top of the chests, or the chest has been moved underneath the boss. Originally in the vanilla game, you could just kind of go into the mini dungeon, take the check, and not even have to worry about fighting the boss. That kind of makes them redundant. So, effectively, we have remedied that by making them required to make those checks. Getting an update from Wild Ham over here: 22 fragments for Snolid, 18 for X10. So both of them teetering on the 2/3 of being complete for Go mode. Although in terms of Go mode for Mystic Quest, just having enough shards is not enough to head to the end dungeon. Much like FFR, you need to make sure that your partners are at the appropriate tier, and you need to make sure that you have the right spells to take on the king.
Oh, this is funny. Okay, so Astos' location was randomized, and it ended up on the Bauble Ferry. Astos, normally you have to bring the crown to him in the castle north of Elfland. And he just kind of attacks you because he wants to be king of Elfland, I guess. But here in the randomizer, he can be on any event NPC that normally gives you something. He could be the king of Corneria. He could be, well, he can't exactly be a princess, can he? Can he? I have no idea.
Oh man, X10 being bombarded by checks here after that loss against Hydra. Yeah, taking on Hydra with a level 1 Phoebe, or tier 1 Phoebe, I would say, rough even with the Excalibur and that the HP pulls he has. Going in for a second dip though. Meanwhile, Snala diving Ice Pyramid now, finding a lot of good loot in here. Ice Pyramid is it?
Go ahead.
I was gonna say Ice Pyramid's a very check heavy dungeon. I think there's about 60 checks to be made in this dungeon total between all the chests.
I
have to check. That might be a bit of an overestimate.
Dispute that.
Yeah, while I check on that, go ahead and say what you were gonna say.
It sounds like a bit too many, but I am seeing in the Final Fantasy 1 players' inventories that Caleb has about 9-ish shards, and Dark Moon has somewhere around 13 or 14. So while they do both have the key in the loot, they aren't exactly close to Go mode yet either.
pulling up. We do have a spreadsheet available on the Mystic Quest Randomizer Discord in the new player room available, so we can go ahead and fact check ourselves with how many checks are available in a dungeon. Ice Pyramid has 4. Sorry, counting is hard. About 34 checks. So I was essentially double what's actually there, but 34 is still a lot of checks to make for a dungeon, and so a lot of opportunity to find goodies for both of our players here in Ice Pyramid.
Yeah, I did think 60 was way too high.
Yeah, although X10 making some progress on his end, having to fight off that Ice Golem water heal attack, although Excalibur doing a lot of the heavy lifting here. Let's see if he gets through here. Good crit from Phoebe.
We are feeding the Titan in the Titan's tunnel, the Ruby, and we're going to get 4 checks from here. And they might be late game checks. We're not sure yet.
Indeed. Meanwhile, Excalibur doing 50-50 work for X10, either critting or missing.
I think since every check in the Final Fantasy 1 game is technically coming from outside, Darkmoon can just reset after getting any chest he wants and just keep the checks.
Essentially, yeah.
Because they're all being labeled as AP items.
Ooh, and X10 clears out Hydra. Let's see what was hiding behind the big nasty dragon.
Caleb finishing off Kraken as well. That's going to be 4 shards for him. He's heading into the waterfall now.
Yep, and there's X10's exit Gemini Crest and multi-key. Meanwhile, looks like there was a crystal in that check behind Hydra.
We do not have a randomly generated waterfall cave, so this is the vanilla waterfall cave. It can be randomly generated if you set the flag for it. And honestly, that's impressive. That's just impressive on the dev side. Maybe one day we can have the same thing for floor 1 of Ice Palace. Or Ice Pyramid, sorry.
No, please don't put that evil on me. Navigating that place is hard enough without the toggle to make dungeons less frustrating. And these brown boxes, when they have AP items in them, I'm looking at the gold values being sent over to FFR, and they are loaded. I'm seeing thousands of gold in these checks.
Yeah, you can have upwards of 65,000 gold in a single chest, I believe. But it's all vanilla, like, chest values. It's just shuffled around.
Yeah. Just a shotgun of money, though.
Yeah.
Speaking of shotguns of money, X10 is going to go ahead and make use of those spell charges now that he's gotten some seeds on hand. Is just going to make easy work of Jin here with Ruben. Going to knock out his Ruben check and his Mega Grenade check. Honestly, not too far behind Snolid. With a little bit of routing magic here, he might actually be able to catch up here.
Speaking of routing, a sort of important part of routing through the volcano that you're seeing Darkmoon do right now is he's specifically walking over the lava tiles. These tiles do damage to your party. I don't know exactly how much, but it's damage on a per tile basis. But when you're walking on damage tiles, you cannot get encounters. Encounters in Final Fantasy 1 being actually random, as opposed to encounters in Mystic Quest being shown on the map.
Quick clarification for you in our broadcast notes there, Giga, from one of our trackers. Apparently it brings you down to 1 HP. Or does
Right,
1
but
HP.
it stops at 1 HP, but I don't know how much damage it does per tile.
Okay. Snolid finding his Dragon Claw here, taking extra careful steps here and making sure that they don't fall down off these bridges. These are not safe bridges. There are no railings. You can slip and fall off. And with the speed hack applied to Mystic Quest Randomizer, essentially making Ben twice as fast as he normally would be, newer runners tend to fall off on those bridges. Can be a real headache for newer players.
Wasn't the Dragon Claw in the volcano?
No, that was... oh, wait, it was. Unless it was in... Interesting. Bit of a discrepancy there with the checks, but that's okay. Like I said before, Dragon Claw is not necessarily required for game completion.
Was it in Gurgu Volcano or just Volcano?
Oh, it was in Gurgu Volcano. That's where it was. So Dark Moon found
Gurgu
Dragon
Volcano
Claw
is
for
where
Snolid.
Dark Moon... Yeah.
Sorry, I was looking at the notes and it just said volcano. I was like, the only volcano I know is Mystic Quest Volcano.
See, that's an important distinction because...
Yeah, no, for sure.
Otherwise, we have two locations with the exact same name.
Indeed. Looks like Snolid's trying to fish out access for Windia region now. Essentially, Snolid's getting to what we would call a BK state. There's a couple checks available to them still. I don't think they've doubled back and gone to the Bone Dungeon quite yet. But unless their access to Windia is locked behind a Gemini or a Mobius Crest warp, they can't get to the third area of the game. Now, that's not to say that they can't complete the seed. They can take our boy Ruben at level 2 and just go in and fight Dark King as long as they have the requisite amount of seeds. But Windia... shards, correct.
That's a terrible, terrible, horrible location for that to be. You see the Sun Coin.
It is a location that is available. So looks like Sun Coin progression is locked behind Axe. Snolid just recently getting his Axe from Dark Moon, then having to run all the way back to the level forest to chop down a tree and check the one chest that had Sun Coin access. X10 a little more familiar with the randomizer than Snolid though, so might be able to make up some legwork if he simply overworld exits back to level forest after getting his Axe. We'll see how that plays out later on. Meanwhile, Snolid beelining it for Rope Bridge. There's 2 checks to make here. We'll see if he dips Giant Tree. I haven't seen anybody make a hint check that requires Tree yet, but Giant Tree could be a location required for one of Dark Moon's items.
We have some important spell weapons on Dark Moon's side. We have a Saber Staff. We have a Lock 2. I didn't see exactly what type of weapon it was, but it doesn't really matter. And we had Mute. I believe the resistances of enemies and bosses in Final Fantasy 1 are also randomized, meaning both... Well, no, it's just the status effect resistances, I think. And Darkmoon must have got... Yeah, he did get his tail at some point. So he's going to upgrade all of his... or change all of his classes right now. He has a Thief, at least one White Mage, I think. We'll find out. Thief, Fighter... I didn't see... White Mage and Black Mage. So now the Thief's a Ninja. Ninjas can cast Black Magic up to, I believe, Tier 4. The Fighter is now a Paladin. Paladins can cast White Magic up to Tier 4. and the white mage and black mage are now white and black wizard.
Meanwhile, Caleb making his way through his volcano, finding X10's Dragon Claw. X10 stream looks like it's hit a commercial break, unfortunately. So we're not being able to see what's happening on his end of this end of the stream. But Caleb is making very quick progress through this dungeon. Although 2 party members turned to stone here, bit of a hairy situation for him.
Mm-hmm. If he had any soft potions, he could cure that status. But it might not be that he does.
Yeah, meanwhile, Snarled Ice indeed committing deforestation here, opting to take those tile checks here and dip into tree here. We'll see if it goes all the way up the big tree. This could be good, or this could be a huge waste of time. Tree has a decent amount of checks. It's just annoying to navigate. The frustrating dungeons tweak does make it a little bit faster. However, the movement here in tree is what turns a lot of people off from this location. Nothing behind Ghidra though, so he will not need to fight the mini boss here.
Ghidra's the one mini boss that doesn't have any checks directly behind, like directly underneath it.
Correct. The Ghidra lock instead implements a state of a door that leads to that chest you saw on the far right of the screen. Essentially, you go into that door on the right, you go through a maze of mushrooms, you come out to the top of the end of the maze, and there's a face door waiting for you. If you have not defeated Ghidra, it will keep its mouth shut and say that until you defeat Ghidra, I will not open my mouth and let you through. Once you defeat the Chimera, you are then free to come back to that door. His mouth will be open, and you can then go check that chest. Mm-hmm. But the peak that Snarled made showed that it was a brown box, so genuinely not worth the time.
We do see that Darkmoon has 24 shards of 32 now. Caleb's fighting Carrie. He's going to get 2 shards when Carrie dies, which should be fairly soon. Unless she rolled particularly beefy.
And both of our teams are in weirdly advantageous situations. Snarled having a decent lead on X10 in terms of check volume. However, Caleb did access Herb into TNT. I don't know how beneficial that has been for him, though. He still does not have Rod or Tail.
In my recollection, the TNT check was nothing.
Ah, bummer. So yeah, it looks like it is still Snarled and Darkmoon's advantage here.
The mages you see on that forced encounter tile are from, I believe, Temple of Fiends Revisited, however they call it, as I stated before.
Meanwhile,
I don't know exactly how difficult they are, but they're definitely gonna take you down.
Yeah, meanwhile, Snarled almost fell on that tricky spot there. I never even considered how getting an AP check on that wall could mess with you. That wall, if you miss input left or right, you will slide all the way off and essentially lose 3 floors of progress in tree, meaning that you will have to go back through a lot of doors just to get back to that tile wall to potentially mess up that climb again. Very tricky for new players, and it's interesting to talk about Mystic Quest as being the movement heavy game out of these two, but it is, in a sense, you have to navigate the terrain and make sure that you don't fall or slide off or mismaneuver, or you lose a lot of progress.
Or even take too much time cutting down trees you don't need to.
Indeed. Ooh, Darkmoon has found the last crest for Snarled, being the Libra crest. Now, this does have the least amount of warps out of the 3 crests. I think only 2 warps, or essentially 4 tiles total, for the Libra crest. So not many checks can be hidden behind this, although they could be important checks. We'll see how that plays out.
We do see Darkmoon exiting Ice Cave, where Caleb is getting into the latter half of. Darkmoon's going to be heading back into the Mirage Tower. Gonna head up past the top of the Mirage Tower into the Sky Palace.
Oh,
And-
that's a rude check.
Sorry?
I just saw
What?
a magic mirror be picked up in top of tree.
Oh.
After both of our runners have already cleared out Ice Pyramid. So what the magic mirror does, Chad, is it gives you visibility of the enemies that are otherwise invisible in Ice Pyramid. So both of our runners, unfortunately, on the Mystic Quest side of the house, have had to navigate this dungeon full of invisible enemies that you can bonk into when their ticket to seeing them was locked behind the tree all along.
It's not like you really need to see the enemies anyways.
Getting past a few bonks could save you in the long run here. Speaking of saving you in the long run, X10 now has access to his axe, so effectively granting him access to the Windia area. We'll see how many checks are behind that location. I don't know how X10 is doing in terms of shard count, although I do know Snolid has about 30 last I looked, so only 4 shards away for Snolid, and effectively putting him in go mode. Now that he has Phoebe 2, unless he doesn't want to go into King fight without life, but we'll see how that plays out for him. Picking up another shard there from the vendor for 300 GP. Looks like X10 has 26 shard fragments, so really only 5 shards behind. Still a very close race, even though there is a level disparity between the two runners here of 3 levels. That's not a huge difference. 16 is about all you need to comfortably fight King. 18 if you really want to be safe. 21 if you want to be even safer. Those are kind of my 3 level ranges. 14 is when you want to go fast and test RNG. We've seen clears of Dark King at level 14 Ben. It's very scary, but it can be done. So realistically, leveling for Ben in Mystic Quest is not a huge concern. What is a concern is what partners you have, what spells you have access to.
Mm-hmm. Personally, I always play it safe. I always go level 20. At least.
It looks like Snolid might have gotten his last shard there when we were looking at X10 screen. I could not see. But if so, that would effectively put him in the go mode. Now, whether or not he's ready with the amount of Cs and the spells that he wants is another story entirely. He does still have to go through the boss refight gauntlet, though pretty set in terms of firepower. He did have all the shards he needs, so now it's just a matter of getting ready and taking on. Once Snolid finishes his seed, he is going to release all the items that he didn't pick up in his seed and send those over to Dark Moon, which could effectively put Dark Moon also in go mode here.
It very likely will. Darkmoon does have upwards of 26 shards from what I saw of his inventory. Caleb, meanwhile, having only 22. They both have the same number of fiends defeated, the same exact fiends defeated, in fact.
Yeah, getting an update from our tracking team here. Dark Moon is only missing 4 shards. Snolid opting here for the petrification kill on Rex here. We'll see if he exits out Stone Golem or decides to brute force this fight. Meanwhile, Caleb taking on Vampire, making short work of him. I think both of our FFR runners are in the Sky dungeon.
They are. Vampires just show up as a random encounter in the Sky Dungeon.
Indeed. Oh, Caleb going back to the bottom of the dungeon here. Either he missed a check.
He might have just wanted to hit a save.
Yep. An update from our tracking team here for Caleb, only missing 9 shards. So realistically, a 5 shard disparity between both of our teams here. X10 still hasn't made it back to level forest to check for that win coin. However, he has foregone the sun coin and just warped into the alive forest using his crests. So, you know, who needs to go back to the level forest when you can simply just warp to where you need to go? And X10 opting not to go into tree. Ooh, life spell. I don't know if Snarled has life.
I also... Oh, it looks like he does.
Okay. Both of our runners do have life available to them, so that means these boss fights will be relatively comfortable. However, I say
relatively comfortable.
I say that, and then Stone Golem breaks out a Dark King web move. Hey, Chanigan, congratulations on finishing your race in time to watch this one.
Welcome to the stream, Chanigan.
Indeed. X10 now picking up his final partner here. Only a few more shards left for him, and then he is also in go mode.
Dark Moon also in go mode. He's heading straight for Toph. Saved right there. He's going to go right into Topher.
Mm-hmm. Getting near the end of the line here. Now, again, for anybody joining us late, the criteria for this race is it is the last player to finish on a team. So regardless of who finishes first, it doesn't matter. Your last racer has to go over the line before the other teams. So if Dark Moon finishes before Caleb, that is GG. Snarled and Dark Moon take this race. X10 finding a battle axe, not something he wants to find here. Essentially, all he needs at this point is Skycoin shards.
Final Fantasy 1 does also have its own Fiend refights. They use the same graphics, the same names, but upgraded stats. And Dark Moon's having a hard time. 2 of his characters have been taken down. But there goes Carrie.
Yeah,
we do have a life spell on our white mage.
Yeah, X10 opting to check Spencer's cave here, looking for these last couple shards of his. Just got one gifted to him from Caleb.
I'm wondering what's going to happen to Lich 2, the speed bump.
Ooh, Diving P Tower. This is going to be an interesting check here. P Tower has a decent amount of chests, but it is a bit of a pain to navigate. That being said, it does have some of the highest level enemies, so if X10's worried about leveling up and making his checks at the same time, he can kill 2 birds with 1 stone and potentially catch up here if Snarled hits a snag on any of our boss fights here. As I say that, I almost speak it into his existence as Phoebe goes down. A nasty bit of fire there from Zuh.
Dark Moon's also skipping Kraken, fighting Tiamat too. That's just how the flags roll.
Meanwhile, Jerkbird ripping out one of his own ribs and chucking it at the team, as he do.
That's just to be expected, you know? Bosses do that sometimes.
You know, just casually rip out bones and throw them until they explode.
Yeah.
Giant's axe over here for X10 and another fragment. Very close to go mode for X10 if that isn't already. Taking this optional fight here to get some XP. Meanwhile, Snarled still hasn't taken down his dual hand, eating up the turn economy on the enemy's side here. Dark Moon making decent progress here through the final dungeon, though. It looks like Dark Moon might finish before Snarled here. Looks like he's on his way to the Chaos fight here. Getting his party in order. Chat, let's go ahead and send our positive vibes here to Dark Moon as he looks to wrap up his seed.
So the ordering of your party in Final Fantasy 1 actually does have an effect on how the enemies target them. Whoever's in the first slot of your party will get targeted more often. Well, whoever's higher up in the party will get targeted more often than whoever is lower down. So typically you want your mages to be in the bottom slots and your tanks to be in the top slots. But I have heard talk of an RNG loop that can take place when certain characters are in certain positions against certain bosses.
Oh, that's go mode for X10. Go ahead and go and use that exit warp on Overworld. Yep, sprinting for the final dungeon here. Now X10 is a little more seasoned with this randomizer with Snolid, able to make a couple more optimizations in terms of damage here. If he's able to catch up and overtake Snolid and Caleb's able to finish before Snolid, this will be an upset for X10 and Caleb.
We have Akir in chat saying during this race they got Kraken 2 and Lich 2, which is definitely weird.
X10 looking at a red chest over there on the right hand side.
Shanigan helping me out with my job, saying the crit loop can happen with slot 3 and 4 in Final Fantasy 1, but it might not happen if you have other characters alive.
X10 forgetting how to get this chest up here on the right. It looks like you need to go up here on the top left staircase, drop down to that bone tile. There we go. And then grapple onto that point there to get that red chest. Just shifting down those sands a little bit too much there. That must be a crucial check for Caleb. I would not see myself getting that.
He keeps using the wrong staircase.
Yep. Yeah, the trick is, chat, they make you think it's easy taking the top staircase. You actually take this first one here and you slide across the sand, going right 2 walks. There we go. And then grappling across. Overshooting it just a hair there. Losing whatever lead that he might have gained, though.
Hopefully this is worth it. Dark Moon.
Yep, GG's for Dark Moon. Get your GG's out in chat. Meanwhile, X10 does navigate the floor, gets his AP item. Looks like it was a shard for Caleb. Caleb onto his Tiamat.
That may have been a important check indeed. If we don't know exactly how many shards Caleb has. He just got another 4 from defeating Tiamat. He has all of them.
Yep, I think that puts Caleb in go mode as well. Mm-hmm. So if Caleb, Snolid's struggling here on Za. If X10 and Caleb can catch up and complete their seed before Snolid takes out Dark King, this will be X10 and Caleb's win.
So the onus really is on Snolid here.
Indeed, yeah. We'll see if X10 opts for exit strats on Rex. Typically, I like to go for life strats from Phoebe onto Rex just for the instant kill. A little more consistent, but exit strats also work. I would have also gone for life here, getting myself a little bit more XP, being at the deficit that I am at 16. But both strats are perfectly viable.
Personally, I prefer the petrification strats with the Dragon Claw. But shall we explain how life works when cast as an offensive spell?
Yeah, the short description is if your party member is higher level than the target, and the target is flagged to be weak against cure or white magic, then you will instantly KO that enemy. As long as it does not have the boss flag set to itself. Rex, although being a boss, does not have the boss flag set to his code. So Phoebe, being level 34 and Rex being level 33, can just go up, life Rex, and kill him. Easy peasy.
I don't recall whether the Stone Golem has a boss flag or not.
He does not. That's why exit works on him. Gotcha.
He's just too high level for Phoebe to cast life on.
I don't think he's also got the undead flag.
I don't recall. I would have to check that.
Yep. And X10 is catching up here.
We do see Caleb here fighting Kraken 2. He might have fought Lich 2 as well. I wasn't actually looking.
Yeah, this is all realistically coming down to X10 versus Snolid. I think Caleb is seasoned enough and well enough to come in and kill Chaos. But it's just a matter of if X10 can optimize his damage to get ahead of Snolid and get a decent king. This is exciting. I was not expecting this coming in here. But with the late start from X10, it was looking a little dubious with all the technical issues. But man, has he come in from behind and really shown Good showing here. Down with Wyvern. X10 is now caught up with Snarled. Now, he does have a 3-level deficit, which means he's going to have less spell charges and less HP than Snarled. However, he does have a lot more experience. Snarled is down to about half HP, I would say. Yeah, X10 also skipping a lot of brown boxes, which could have been good checks for Caleb.
Zug going into his third phase of 3. Zug being the only boss of that size that only has 3 phases because he uses one of his damage phase sprites for Psych Shield.
Yeah, meanwhile, X10 going on the offensive with his spells, leaving Phoebe in triage mode, opting to not get as much damage as he could have, but confused Phoebe, most dangerous enemy in the game.
We do have the Black Mage down on Caleb's side. I'm not sure how that's going to affect his damage output, because in Final Fantasy 1, the main way of dealing damage is by buffing your main sword swinger. Whoever swings the sword the hardest, you gotta buff them the most. Make them swing harder, swing faster. And the Black Mage is the one doing the buffing.
Looks like Snarled's coming up here on the end of his Zub fight. On to Dark King. If King is nice, this is Dark Moon and Snarled's game to win. Caleb still making decent progress on his Chaos fight.
Looks like 3 hits, 200 damage from the ninja. We have 1 hit, 79 damage from the paladin.
It looks like he got his Black Mage back up.
He did.
And that is looking like I'm seeing the logs here, so it's a bit of a spoiler because of the delay. But that is GG for Caleb, chat.
We just got it in as he said it.
So this literally has come down to X10 and Snarled Ice. We'll see how RNG favors our 2 runners here. Looks like Zug got very heavily loaded with HP and damage. So really coming in here being the boss he needs to be. Meanwhile, Snarled on the phase to a Dark King. Nothing too dangerous so far. Some baby attacks here. Nothing doing a lot of damage. Just able to power your way through here. This could be a free win for Snarled as he moves into phase 3.
But nobody can tell just yet. Snarled does have random sprites turned on.
Indeed. So surprise, Dark King is actually Razdorak.
Do we know what Razdorak is from?
I don't remember what game he's from, unfortunately. But there are a lot of quote-unquote true forms available in the randomizer for the Dark King.
That's right. If you want, you can come into our server and submit your own.
Yeah, it looks like it's an OG creation from one of our community members of the same name, Razdorak. X10 on to phase 3 of Jerkbird. Meanwhile, Razdorak really not giving a lot of opposition for Snarled here. Pumping out the damage as he moves on to phase 4.
That is beautiful looking. Raz really did a great job.
Meanwhile,
Za is down.
Za is down, but I don't think that's going to be enough to make up the difference here, as the Dark King really isn't breaking out enough of the stops to really impede Snarled's progression at this point. X10 being bombarded with checks here. The only dangerous move I've seen come out of the Dark King so far is babies. I don't think that's going to be enough, though. Couple more spell casts here should do this for Snarled. Ooh, Mega White coming out here at the very end, as X10 makes his way up to the Dark King fight. And that's time for Snarled Ice, giving us your winners on the stream, Team Dark Moon and Snarled Ice.
a final time of, I believe, 1:25:40-ish.
Indeed, chat, get your GGs in for our amazing runners tonight. X10 really showing his knowledge and stuff, even with, what was it, about a 10-minute deficit of technical difficulties in the beginning there, only being a few minutes behind overall, really shows the skill level shown off here tonight. X10 getting another one of our custom sprites, although it looks like the palette's a little messed up here. It could be because of Ben's sprite or something, but that is a pumpkin indeed telling you to fight it out.
Hey!
Hey
there.
Dark Moon, GG's. Snolid, thanks for joining us. GG's on your stream victory. I
Thanks.
don't have the results from RTA and Farfaloo yet.
We got 3rd place overall. So,
Well, congratulations.
thanks. Yeah, Team 1 or Team 4 and Team someone finished before we... Team 3 and Team 4 finished before we did.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Still not a bad showing overall. How do you guys feel about this first foray into multi-world races between the two games?
I felt good until the fight.
That's where most Mystic Quest runners start to feel bad, is on that last jerkbird fight.
It does
Yeah.
feel like BKing happens a fair bit with FFR. This is the second one we've played of these flags together. And, like, I've gotten BK'd just kind of waiting there both times. Got BK'd twice this time. So that was entertaining.
Yeah, I did have a sneaking suspicion when you started grinding
Yep.
an encounter tile. I was like, he's probably
Yep.
BK'd.
Yeah.
You took a nasty death there in March. How far did that
Yeah.
set you back in your grind?
5 levels. It wasn't the end of the world. When I went to Astos, I checked the tiles there too, and I got 3 or 4 of them back. I was grinding for the sake of grind and to be in Marsh when the key showed up so I could then go do the key. So, like, if I'd gotten 20 levels or so, I would have been upset to lose it, but I was, 3-4 minutes in? It wasn't a big deal. It was killing time.
Yeah, and that
Yeah.
is GG for X10 being our final run it across the line here with a final time of about 1 hour 28 minutes, 20-ish seconds, I would say. So great run and performance overall from all of our racers here tonight.
Right.
Finishing sub hour and a half for a multi-world seed is great.
Worked out well. Yeah, the canoe placement was gross.
Yeah. The
Where was the
Zatex
canoe?
also was pretty gross.
Canoe was in Volcano. Oh no, Canoe was in Sea Shrine, but it required going into Volcano, like his volcano, the Lava Dome,
Right.
or the Oxyale. But because I didn't have enough checks done after I checked for Key and Canoe, because those are the first 2 things I needed, I couldn't check for Oxyale, so he went and did Lava Dome for Canoe? No, not for Key. And then left, and then I needed him to go back to Lava Dome for...
Actually, never left. I was just
Oh,
clearing
good.
checks in there.
That's good at least, but it was still like if we'd known that ahead of time, we could have prioritized that a bit better and picked up a couple
Yeah.
minutes. Yeah.
And that is how it be for multi-world. Meanwhile,
Yeah.
we're joined here by Caleb and X10. GG's, gentlemen. Very, very close race.
Hey,
Even
thanks,
with the
Evans.
technical difficulties at the beginning. X10, unfortunate that you ran into those difficulties. Although we did get to see how that impacted your routing. You were only a couple minutes behind Snolid. Very, very close, given the deficit you had at the start there. How did that impact your routing?
I'm like, I need to rush everything. Like, I need to hit Dark King at the lowest level and get all the items I can. So I just went for item density for a change.
Yeah, I'm really happy you got to show off getting to Windia without Suncoin, because we saw where it was. It was in Level Forest. It was in a chest behind a tree check in Level Forest. I'm like, oh man, he's got to go all the way back to Level Forest. And instead, you're like, no, I'm just gonna warp there. It'll be fine.
I didn't find the warp. Where
I
was
sti-
that warp?
It was in the Hermit Sack and Firebird with River Quest.
When I forgot, of course.
So I mean, yeah, no, you two got to show off all the like the knowledge checks on Mystic Quest, and it was really cool to see. Snollet, I saw you go into Giant Tree fishing for some items for Dark Moon X10. You faded Tree like a true veteran of the community. So, you know, we got to show both of those off on stream. Caleb, how did you feel about your seed? Dark Moon was just lamenting being BK'd a couple times there. Did you have the same issue on your end?
I wasn't lamenting it. I mean, if I'm being honest, the technical difficulties like really spun me up in like the first 10 minutes of the race, and I was just like, it was all just muscle memory. I was like opening boxes, talking to people, and I wasn't remembering anything. So thankfully the AP log keeps track of that stuff, because it was just I went away for a little while mentally, but it was interesting. Like he's like, we noticed the technical difficulties. Like, I sent you something. I was like, no, you didn't. And then it was just like, oh. And then like when it finally clicked, and it was the first thing he sent me was floater, and I was like, oh man, it's gonna be one of these seeds. So, like a dummy, I'm not used to the AP stuff. So my first hint was for loot, because that was my one required item that I knew that I needed to beat the game on my end. And I should have hinted for canoe, because I knew that the thief would eventually become a key, so it wasn't that important. And when X10 was getting all of his checks done and getting situated in his early game, I was like, well, I'm just gonna go grind, get some levels, and if my thief becomes a key, so be it. And then the Tyro, or the Tyros in the desert hit way too hard, and they had way too much HP. But then I remembered the zombie Ds, and then he found me my key, and I was like, all right, well, I'll go do the key checks. And then at that point, thief was almost a key anyway. But and then it was just kind of like just keeping the next check in front of me. Like it was kind of awkward routing, but we both needed so many shards that it was just like,
yeah,
what are you
Just
gonna do?
check everything.
Yeah, and I was fighting Tiamat, and he was heading into Doom Tower after I sent him his last shard. He's like, there's a box here, I'm gonna go check it. I was like, all right. And lo and behold, it was my last shard. So I was very, very grateful for that I didn't have to go into ordeals, try to dig out a rod, or go into do like the Titans check or all the fetch item checks. I just didn't really wasn't feeling that. So I was very grateful that my last shard came out of his Doom Tower.
Yeah, and I was going to ask that, and I'll start with you, Dark Moon and Snollet. Was there any discussion before this race about how you two would spend your hints? Essentially, what items would y'all want to fish from each other going in?
Not really. I always go for chest density based on the sphere that I have available. So key is a good one. I know thief can become one, but I tend to be low levels until the very end because I'm just breezing through and resetting out of everything. Grinding doesn't happen very often unless I get BK'd. So key is an important one for me. Canoe opens up most of the rest of the game. So those are the ones that I will always hit first because I want to make sure I can target those locations before I go anywhere else.
For me, it just depends what I need. I just usually, whenever I play AP in general, I just hit based on what I need and how the seed is turning out and how other hints are done.
Very nice.
I
What about
Cure Book? I'm sorry for interrupting.
No,
I
no,
hinted
you're
Cure
good.
Book, Life Book kind of early. But
I mean, those are really important spells to hint for, and I would say for Mystic Quest, the spells kind of are your hit key hints if you're not locked behind progression. X10, Caleb, was there any strategy for y'all in terms of your hints, or kind of the same school of thought? Just hint for what you need and send the other person to fetch it if they're close to it.
Well, kind of, like, because in the pregame, X10, you were talking about, like, hinting for Flare, and then I got it, like, very early, and so it's just kind of like, with Mystic Quest, there's no, like, key items that you need, like, that are gating progression. There's weapons and stuff, so, but I can let X10 speak to his Mystic Quest strategy more.
Well, my strategy is I need to kill stuff fast. I need to gain the time I lost due to tech issues. I'm like, I want flare, I want exit.
Yeah, and like as soon as you connected to the client, we saw you get front loaded with white, with flare. I mean, that genuinely did change your routing from Snolid from what I could see, because you cleared some sections they didn't come back to until later, just because you had that advantage. Did you feel like that was a bit of a boon getting front loaded with all that stuff, or was the anxiety of being, troubleshooting and then feeling like you're behind just kind of negate all that?
It was a mix of both. Like, I know I had the game out of my mind to keep up with everyone at that point. And going to Wintry Cave, is what saved the run.
Yeah, knowing your density, knowing your check locations, I really do think makes a difference in these types of races. Go ahead.
I just have to note one thing. We're getting the tracker help me so much remembering what all the checks were.
Yeah, you really do need a tracker sometimes coming into this, especially for archipelago stuff. So, final question I want to ask you guys before we go ahead and let y'all go for the night, because I know it's getting late. And I'll ask Dark Moon and Snolid first. With this being kind of an exhibition show once a month for the crossover, if you're going to come back and do another race during this series, what settings for your randomizer would you like to show off next time?
Ooh.
Entrance shuffle. Maybe not an extreme one, but like Dungeon Overworld.
I mean, entrances on its own for Final Fantasy would be fine. Entrance and floor makes the hints completely useless. So if we did entrance and floor, it's basically just, well, don't hint for anything because you'll never find it.
I'm talking about more the Mystic Quest side.
No, I know, but I agree with you. I mean, it'd be fun. I honestly would like it for Final Fantasy as well, for our entrance shuffle. I just think entrance and floor is a different beast from our entrance shuffle. There's a lot of cool stuff in there. I think some stuff could be fun to put in. If we did Spellcrafter with items, or like we have Transmoog, which makes a bunch of new classes, although that one's not always the most viable, but it is kind of fun. I mean, if we're doing showcases, show off some fun features before we settle down into something that's, race ready, those would be good ones to do.
For sure. What about you, Caleb, in X10? What would you guys want to showcase if you came back and did a different seed?
Personally, for me, I want to solve the quest ones, where you power up your characters by doing quests.
Oh yeah, the extended quests. We were talking about that before the stream. I love that setting. It's such a cool option that's been added recently. What about you, Caleb?
I think it'd be fun. I'm a big fan of Lich's Revenge. It's event flags that aren't often used that change the narrative of the game. So all the NPC text is different. Wildham created the flag, 3 years ago for a Halloween race that we did for the FFR community, and it was just a treat going into that blind. And you talk to an NPC in the town, they turn into a zombie, and it's a fight. And if you kill them, there's never there again. Stuff like that. All of the NPC turn-ins turn into undead fights. It's just a lot of fun. So probably Lich's Revenge. Maybe some of the procedural generated stuff that Tetron's been working on with Earth Cave. But yeah, I also would like to see entrance floor shuffle because I love that kind of stuff. But if it's broken, and we can't use for AP, that's fine. But maybe some more class stuff, maybe a party pool or something like that, or a tavern selection. I start with one Light Warrior, go back to Speed Gaming Live 2019 stuff. Just there's a lot of
the tavern stuff at all. I'd like to see that.
You can change party members in the clinics. The clinics become taverns. And each town has a different party member for sale. It's
there
a lot
are more
of fun.
than 6 towns, right?
Yeah, there can be doubles. There's usually one town that has the same, we'll have a duplicate, but you could turn on duplicates in taverns, and then you're not necessarily guaranteed
right.
all of them. And you can also select which classes are available from taverns. So if you only want black belts in your taverns, you can put just black belts. I like the floaterless stuff that's all the overworld changes too, the canoe to Lefane, the bridge to Lefane, the canoe up through to the Gaia Pass, and the highway to Ordeals. It's basically doing a floaterless seed would be fun, I think. make the canoe super important, but you make it free and it's just wild out the gate. But there's so much. The Bounty Randomizer is such a dense website,
Yes.
and there's so much to choose from. Like just doing Lich's Revenge with no floater and just turning on the overworld flags, like, is such a different game than we've seen in any sort of organized race, probably.
Yeah, and the Mystic Quest randomizer is constantly growing. I feel like I turn, like it goes a week and Ham's come up with some new crazy idea to add to the randomizer. It's been growing exponentially. So I mean, you've all gotten me excited for the potential for this showcase series, mixing and matching a bunch of different types of seeds. Until we either find something that sticks or just keep mixing things up and adding new things to show off to you lovely viewers out there in chat. I hope this makes you all excited. This is going to be a reoccurring series. If you want to see when the next race is going to be, it's going to be at the end of every month.
Hey,
Is it the last Wednesday of every month?
I believe it is, yes.
Yes.
I have a question for you, Hevix.
Yeah, go ahead.
What flags do you want to see?
Oh, man. Asking me. I would love to do a crazy, like, essentially, not to toot my own horn, but what I would call a pro seed with everything shuffled. So all crests, all entrances, all floors, along with extended quests, chaos spell books, the works. Just kind of show you how wild it can get.
What is chaos spellbooks?
So you shuffle all of your party members' spells between them randomly. So like Tristan could get Flare and Phoebe could get stuck with like Quake. Or Ruben could be front loaded with 8 spells and Kaylee gets 1.
Fascinating. I gotta come back into Mystic Quest, man. Y'all been cooking over here.
Not to mention I would also shuffle in resistances, which changes what everybody's resistant / weak to. I would really truly call it a chaos seed, and I'd want to showcase that for the world. But we'll see if I get my opportunity to do that. I need to find a partner first.
Maybe in October.
Maybe.
For Halloween, yeah. We could try to find something similar with FFR too. There's a lot of like Darkmoon was talking about with Spellcrafter, the Armor Crafter. You do all final bosses. Like you can do the full over randomizer stuff.
Everything crafter, yeah.
Yeah, something we can agree that both sides are gonna have to hunker down for at least 2.5 hours and just really get their teeth into. And...
Let's not go crazy.
I'll do it.
I would do it.
Torture.
I would do it. Caleb could commentate. He can laugh at all of us. I love hearing you on the microphone.
2 hours?
just do what you normally do and fall back about talking about food.
That's fair. This was a lot of fun. Apart from the frustration in the beginning, it was still a lot of fun. I'm glad I did it. Thanks X10 for showing up and being my partner.
Thank you for being one.
Yeah, no, shout outs to all of our amazing runners tonight, chat. Let's hear it again for Darkmoon, Snolid, Caleb, X10, the other runners who were not on stream, RTA Farfalu. And our last pairing was, I can't remember, Giga.
Eki and Flipkeel.
Yep, shout outs to everybody who raced tonight.
Yeah.
Always great to get these community events up and running, and always great to do these showcases. I'm glad. Thank you again to Darkmoon and the rest of the FFR community for having the Mystic Quest community come on here and agreeing to do these showcases. I'm excited for the future of these.
And since nobody asked me, the flags I want to see are just no. Hear me out.
What do you want to see, Giga?
The confused old men.
Yeah, right? What happened to confused old men?
I want to see those old men just stumbling around in the back of Crescent Moon Lake.
Yeah, and like the Zozo Melmond and...
Yeah, the ones that don't affect logic at all. They're just fun to see.
Yeah. Zozo Melmond with Lich's Revenge. What could go wrong?
Absolutely nothing.
Or confused old men with Lich's Revenge. Then you gotta wander around, find the right one with your item, or just like you're just fighting off old men trying to bite you.
Hey, this is all of our shows, so as long as we agree to the chaos, we can do whatever we want with these.
Yeah, I'm down. I mean,
make the old men wander.
Wednesdays at 8 are great for me. I'll see you guys every month. I'll be here. In theory.
Oh man, you heard it here, chat. You want more Caleb? Check in at the last Wednesday of every month for Final Fantasy Randomizer X, Final Fantasy Mystic Quest Randomizer. Any final thoughts? We'll start with you, Dark Moon and Snolid. Anything you want to say before we call it a night tonight? You know, you're just speaking the words of our people at this point for the Mystic Quest community.
Okay, I'm actually kind of salty. I would have gone sub 120 or 12x if that fight wasn't a pain.
Tale as old as time. Sorry. Anyways, you were saying
I'm just glad that White Mage was useful on the character select screen, because if it hadn't been,
White Mage was carrying.
Yeah, White Mage was great. I don't know if it was running from everything. It had great spells. I don't know if I made it through that Topher, even the fact though it was mid Topher, with how hard those bosses were hitting. If I didn't have White Mage's cure magic on me, because that Red Mage wouldn't have been as good, and I would have been kind of hosed on like health and levels.
So we weren't privy to the blessings. What was going on there?
It was just the Red Mage. Oh, it was that the Red Mage sucked because they had -4 MP.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Per level. So it was like take a Red Mage and not be good, or take a White Mage and at least have something. So I took the White Mage. I didn't. I think they also had hit percent, which I didn't care about in the slightest.
Yeah. Yeah, White Mage losing Invis 2 isn't a big enough malice to ignore it.
No.
Did you go left or right? Did you get Lich and Tia or Carrie and Kraken?
I got Carrie and Tia on right side.
Oh, I'm sorry. I got Kraken and Lich. My bad.
You confused me. I'm like, were we playing the same?
Dark Moon, what if I told you we're the confused old men? We were the confused old men all along.
Confused old men is the friends we made along the way.
Are they supposed to switch? Because I've gone right side twice now on the 2 seeds I did, and they've both been Carrie and Tia.
Yeah, they move around.
Okay, cool. I was like, I'm lucky twice. Let's go, boys.
Yeah.
But no. It was good. It was good. I don't remember what the black belt had, but even with them being there, they weren't good enough for me to take them.
Mm-hmm.
So
the fighter had like 40 strength and extra cash to start.
Yeah, he was good. He was good enough for what I needed, and I was gonna get all the gear I wanted anyway. Did you take fighter?
Yeah, it took fighter, thief, white, black. If thief wouldn't have been forced, I would have probably done double fighter.
I could see that.
But, yeah,
I could see that.
They hit so hard.
That was great. I didn't even move the X-Cal off him. I'm just buff a couple times. You'll be fine.
Never had it. Vorpal 5, Katana 5. That's what I was working.
I was intending to switch to the Vorpal 5, but I didn't for Chaos because I'm just like, man, that's too much menuing. It's fine.
We have Ig here in chat saying he had the same party.
It was a good party.
It was a good party.
It was a good party.
Yeah, it's a classic party in a modern FFR.
Yeah. All right, and that's what I had.
Nice. GG's, man.
RK had it too.
Fair enough. Any final thoughts from you, X10 or Caleb, before we sign off for the night?
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here.
Enjoyable. Besides the tech issues, I enjoyed it.
Yeah, the tech issues are always a bummer, but next time.
Yeah, next month we'll come ready. No tech issues.
Hopefully.
In theory.
February is on the fence for me. I don't know when I'm gonna become an uncle, so that's gonna.
Oh, that's fun. Yeah, I'll find a partner. Don't worry. Or I can always flip to Mystic Quest.
I mean, I might be available.
Hey, there you go. Caleb and
Well,
Hemmings.
If you're gonna be available, then who's gonna commentate? I'm gonna have to be here in the booth alone.
Nah, we'll find somebody. We'll find some other great people to showcase here on the
Like I said,
microphone.
if I'm available, I don't mind commentating either. So.
Well, there we go. Caleb, any final thoughts from you?
No, this is a lot of fun. Thanks, Wildham, for organizing it. Hemmings, Giga, thanks so much for doing the broadcast, voice talking stuff. This was great. Hope everybody comes and checks out the Mystic Quest Randomizer. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, if you want to check that out, chat, that's ffmqrando.net. You can find a link to our Discord on the left-hand side in the menu there. We've gone ahead and posted both of our randomizers here in the chat for you. And while you guys are checking those out, I do want to throw a final shout out here to our tracker, our one-man tracking army, Socket over here, with some help from Wildham. I won't take the spotlight away from Wildham. He helped out a ton,
And helped me.
giving us some info updates. So, and also helped get X10 up and running. So huge shout outs to both Ham and Socket.
Wildham doing
but
triple duty.
Yeah, I know, right? Giga, any final thoughts from you?
No, I'm. Whenever people ask me for final thoughts, I'm always like, nah, head empty.
Fair enough. I mean, no thoughts are thoughts. So with that, chat, I will go ahead and say thanks again so much for joining us again. If you want more of this, we're going to be doing this at the last Wednesday of every month. We will showcase something different probably, and they will be Archipelago seeds. So you will see a pair of Final Fantasy runners and a pair of Mystic Quest runners. Or if we don't have enough for 4 people, we will do a showcase with both games being represented and maybe do something a little more chill with those settings. But that being said, thanks everybody for showing up tonight. Hope you like this. Leave us your thoughts and your opinions on that, on what we can showcase or what you might want to see, and maybe we can make those a reality. But until next time, we'll see you all. Have a great night.